lot. Jason, I'll be working tomorrow night again.
I hear you, JP Underground at 11 o'clock.
Yep, that's right. Zach, how's work going?
It's fine. We're actually reopening the tap room next week, so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
That's going to be closer to you, yeah.
Yep, for sure.
Welcome to Visionaries Global Media, your number one source for podcasting entertainment. Visionaries Global Media, envisioning excellence on a global scale.
This is Band from Ringside.
Tonight on the Band from Ringside podcast, Wednesday Night Wars both had a pretty good night last night. We talk about the return of the Pure Championship in Ring of Honor. We do our NXT TakeOver do-over from 2017 with TakeOver Orlando. That and a whole bunch more tonight on the Band from Ringside podcast.
In the house.
Ditch that 9 to 5. It's time to feel alive. Hello, Mark. So welcome to the Band for Ringside podcast. As always, I'm your host, Bill Vagey, a.k.a. Live Long and Jobber. And not too far away from me, over there in South City also, is Jason Cornelius Bell. What's going on, JCB?
Shit, that was good. Allow us to bow our heads as I read from the latest edition of the Band from Ringside podcast, volume 173. Chapter 3, verse 14, and the good smart saying, hashtag boo the heels. It is all good, baby. Listen, share, subscribe, repeat. No shutouts this week. Ready to talk a little wrestling. Ready to talk a little ROH. This has been a while since we talked ROH on the BFR. So I'm interested to see how at least Two Beer had his take on the Pure tournament.
Yeah, it's been a while since anybody's talked about ROH, it seems like. And over there in Edwardsville, Illinois, we have Two Beers. Zach Pullman, what's going on, Two Beer?
Man, I'm just having a German lager on the porch. It's like 73 degrees. Life's good.
It's really nice outside. It is still dank in my basement, where I'm coming at you from South City, St. Louis. A lot of people might not know this about Jason Cornelius Bell. He's a bit of a Trekkie, ain't you?
A little bit.
Come on.
Star Wars is my favorite, but I am a Trekkie.
Yes, I mean, you've watched all the Star Treks, right?
Yep.
Voyager, Deep Space Nine, the whole shebang, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I mean, you've never mentioned it on the podcast, and sometimes I forget myself that you are a Trekkie. And,
it never really comes up.
No, it certainly doesn't. But today it did with that AKA from Vice.
And if you want to subscribe to Jason's OnlyFans, he can show you his Deep Space Nine.
And we're off.
It was a bit of a, it's sometimes there's ebbs and flows in the wrestling business. Some weeks there's all sorts of shit to talk about. Some weeks there's not a whole bunch of shit to talk about. This is one of those weeks, but we'll probably end up blabbering on for about 2 hours or so anyway. So without further ado, actually, Jason, why don't you tell us about F&B Eatery?
F&B Eatery on the corner of 3453 Southampton and Marquette, home of the greatest smash burger you've never heard of. So let's go alleviate that problem. I told Mike I'm coming in tomorrow to pick up my burger on the way to work, so my shit will be curbside. Do yourself a salad. Get yours curbside, so that way you can keep it moving to the next destination, whether it's going home to relax, going to work like I am to get your eat on, then go ahead and make some money, or just start the weekend right, sitting home and relaxing with the kids and the wife. F&B Eatery, corner of 3453 Southampton and Marquette. Tell them that Band from Ringside sent you.
Let's get to that 3 count.
1, 2, 3.
JCB, kick it off.
We're going to do the Wednesday Night Wars as the 1 count. Since I get to do it, I get to pick which one I want to do first. In this case, I'll pick the one that I thought was a little better. Both were good, but I thought this show was a little better, and it started off at the top. We're going to go with AEW Dynamite first. Off the top, you had FTR versus Lucha Express in a nice little tag team match. But for me, the bigger point coming out of this was the brief the entrance of the Young Bucks, decapitating one referee and dropping a nice little 10,000 K stack in front of Tony Khan sitting in Gorilla to keep it moving. Haven't seen Tony Khan on TV as of yet really on Dynamite until recently this week. So that was kind of interesting to see. FTR ends up winning this match with a little fuckery from Cash and Tully holding down the Jungle Boy to get the pin. Good match, like I said, nothing great. Matt Hardy apparently is attacked by Jericho and one Jake Hager backstage. Now, my question is, what the hell is Matt Hardy doing there to begin with? I mean, the last time I checked, you're supposed to be going home, taking a break, not even really to be thought about. And then the very next week, granted, probably wasn't touched, but the next week he's on TV. For me, that took a little bit away from the angle itself. If it is an angle, I think there's some truth to it, but part of it, I think this is a long-term storyline angle. But like I said, we'll see how that ends up going down as the weeks progress. Hangman Page and Frankie Kazarian, I thought, had an amazing match for what to me was a setup for the long-term Kenny Omega versus Hangman Page feud. This match kind of overshadowed that feud for a little bit. I thought this was absolutely an amazing match. To me, it was the match of the night on both shows. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. Like I said, for me, this was a setup for Kenny and Hangman Page, but it ended up turning out to be one, like I said, the best match of the night. MJF cuts his promo to tease whether he's going to a faction, whether he's starting his own faction. My thought process on that is we saw him, for those who watched MLW, we saw him as the leader of the dynasty with him, Hammerstone, and Richard Holiday. Obviously, he can slide over into pick a faction in the AEW. If it was me and I fantasy booked it, I would have him join the Inner Circle. If the Inner Circle's been a little lagging as of late, you could have him join the Inner Circle and then jump in and eventually take over Jericho. Jericho can have his babyface run before he leaves the company. We would have had ready-made action for MJF to kind of run as his own, but that's just me and my fantasy booking. A Kingston comes out, basically quote-unquote.
Let's take a break there because you just touched on something interesting, and I want to get Two Beer's thoughts on it. Two Beer, where would you put MJF? Would you have him start his own faction, or would you put him with the Inner Circle, or would you put him somewhere else?
I was thinking about this myself because that kind of came out of left field whenever he announced this, and I feel like I would put him in his own faction. He's already got Wardlow, get a couple other of guys, maybe that aren't getting a bunch of screen time, with the story being that he's paying them on top of their Tony Khan contract, right? And so their loyalties are to him, and just kind of run that way. And it makes him a little more heelish too. He's got more ample opportunities for feuds because we know that the Wardlow feud is coming, right? Like Wardlow's got big time babyface potential going on, and it just keeps building each week that MJF continues to be a shithead. So you could have more of that aspect. So that could be fun.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd put him with the Inner Circle unless he was going to if we're fantasy booking, which we tend to do, if he was going to have a coup and take down Jericho, and then you have Jericho come back as a babyface or something, and have MJF be in charge of the Inner Circle. I'm kind of confused as to where they're going with the Inner Circle right now, because right now you have Hager and Jericho are fighting in the tag team division, which on its face isn't a problem, but you also have Santana and Ortiz in the Inner Circle also fighting in the tag team division. So I don't know if that's something they've planned on. Surely they've thought about that. What do you think about that, Jason?
I like Zach's idea of starting his own faction with his own money, because obviously that's kind of the MJF gimmick. The reason why I said the Inner Circle is because, and I'm not even trying to be funny, because AEW does get this bad rap, but I think there's enough factions going on. And some of them don't have names, others do have names. I think we're at a point where we're faction full. Okay, and then this is coming from the guy that loves him some factions, loving MJPW. So that's why I lean towards the Inner Circle. I just didn't want to see another faction come out and take away from somebody else. Do I agree with Zach? Yeah. I mean, building new stars is what I'm all about. So if you got just because it's the first person that came to my mind, and it wouldn't be right, but Will Hobbs is the first guy that's coming to my mind. He's getting the Jon Moxley rub automatically next week. God forbid he comes out and he looks good. So, I mean, that's, double kudos to Will Hobbs. So if you started a faction with MJF as the head and kind of build guys around with guys that you don't really know of, or, guys that need a break, that would be a good way to go.
All right, so I cut you off there. Next, we had Eddie Kingston. What happened in that segment?
Eddie Kingston comes out, basically reminds everybody once again that he was not eliminated by Lance Archer. So I'm assuming something's going to have to come out of that.
I think he's going to have a match against Curtis Axel.
They proceed to beat down random. They beat down random Joe Schmo from the guest. I wouldn't say the guest, but beat down random Joe Schmo. But to me, the capper was he looks at Blade and he says that it's time to take care of your house as well as long as we're taking care of the family's house, it's time for you to take care of your house, which leads me to believe this is where Allie finally stabs QT Marshall in the back and she rolls back to the Butcher and the Blade and the quote-unquote family. From there, you had the women's NWA title match, Thunder Rosa versus Eve Elise. I don't understand why Eve Elise is not a part of this roster to begin with at this point. But once again, Thunder Rosa retains in a really good match. DeMonte attacks afterwards. Sheeta comes in to make the save. So now they have a tag team match next week. That should be really good. Lance Archer comes out. Well, I should say Lance Archer comes out. Jake comes out to basically say he's going to make a deal with the devil. Brings out Team Taz. Taz comes out. Everybody kind of makes the deal where Lance Archer beats Moxley. And then Archer gives Brian Cage the first title match. As soon as he beats Archer, everybody shakes on it, hugs it out or whatever. I kind of like this temporary alliance between the heels. So as Jon Moxley comes out to announce his team, Brian Cage and Ricky Starks proceed to jump him in the stands. Making the save, surprisingly, in my mind, is one Will Hobbs. Now, if you haven't been paying attention, and some of you might not be paying attention, he has been coming on strong lately on AEW Dark, winning in consecutive weeks after going 0-5 and then having the breakout performance in the Battle Royal. So obviously there is a plan for one Will Hobbs. He just apparently signed with AEW, so he's on the full-time roster. So Will Hobbs is going to get a push in some form or fashion, and then completing the trio is one Darby Allin. So it will be Darby Allin, Will Hobbs, and Moxley versus Archer, Brian Cage, and Ricky Starks.
You know what I think of when I see Will Hobbs? He's just so athletic. You know what I mean? Like he's just really athletic.
Are you being sarcastic?
I'm just saying that's the way they talk about black people.
I know that's
God, he's athletic. Oh, he's so athletic.
You ain't shit. I swear to God.
I was like, Bill's like went full on racist. He's on plaid.
Yeah, right. Announced for next week is Brody Lee versus Orange Cassidy for the TNT title. I think this is a really smart, progressive move for Orange Cassidy. We kind of wondered out loud what would be next. I think after the biggest win in his career, a title shot was probably the next step. And Brody Lee is the quote-unquote mid-card champion in my mind, so that makes sense. So we have that match next week. That was announced. And then the main event, which I would be perfectly honest, I was not looking forward to at all, and it was absolutely ridiculous. You had Best Friends versus Santana or Ortiz in a street fight, and I think I've seen a little bit of everything with street fights, but then I saw this nonsense, and there was a couple of times where I literally sat up on the couch, was like, what the fuck is going on? Ridiculous street fight, guys going through the windshields, splash on the roofs, the whole 9 yards, everybody's bleeding. No stone unturned. Trent's mom giving the finger after the best friends win, to me, was the cherry on top of the cake of a really good AEW Dynamite show.
Zach, thoughts on any of that?
Oh yeah, that great main event was awesome. Like it totally exceeded expectations, right? Like I'm like, oh, this will be fine, it'll be fun, it'll be a brawl, right? It'll be outside, there'll be some comedy. And there wasn't until the very end, whenever Trent's mom picked him up and like flipped the bird to him as they drove away. Like that part was comedy, but like the rest of it was just brutal, man. Like they put like Ortiz underneath the hood of that car and took turns doing splashes on the hood. Like I was like worried about the guy, besides like all the blood. It was a hell of a good match, and I'm not really super into like hardcore stuff. That's not my preferred match. Like my preferred match is much more like what Adam Page and Frankie Kazarian did, which is like quintessentially a G1 match in the middle of Dynamite, right? That's what they did.
Yeah, anybody that criticizes AEW for being too spot heavy could have no basically criticisms of those first two matches of FTR versus Jurassic Express and Page versus Kazarian. Both of those were really good matches.
Yeah, for real. Absolutely. It was really solid wrestling, and the same for NXT, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But I think like top to bottom, that was a very tight show. It was 2 hours of professional wrestling that, you know, really good professional wrestling, really good like sports entertainment aspects, just what I want out of a wrestling show. And I was actually kind of bummed that these shows were on the same night again, because the past couple weeks it's been awesome. Like kind of having some time to like decompress and like absorb the matches and the what consume them, you know, a little bit more appropriately, I guess, without kind of rushing through. And both these shows were so good that I didn't care that I like spent 4 hours of my night just watching wrestling, right? Like they were really good.
Yeah, I enjoyed this also. I really like the idea. I like the Archer and Moxley build so far. Friend of the show, Micah, told us last week when we were talking about if Moxley and Archer had ever fought each other. They had last year in New Japan for the was it for the Intercontinental belt? For the U.S. title.
U.S. title.
Yeah.
Texas
Death Match, which like we didn't know what that was until they did it.
I'm with Zach in that a street fight hardcore type of match is not really my cup of tea. This one was, you know, I'm not as high in it as you guys were. When I had the opportunity to watch this live or watch Priest versus Thatcher, which we'll get to, I chose Priest versus Thatcher. I went back and watched it today. Yeah, man, those guys, like Zach said, I was worried about them. You know, it's one thing. I would rather have matches be told in the ring. I hate that walk and punch type stuff. This was not the walk and punch Triple H style brawl at all. This is more of a spot heavy brawl, but it wasn't my favorite. However, it was a really good episode of Dynamite. Let me ask you this. Do you guys feel like MJF coming out and cutting that promo, do you feel like he lost anything in that loss to Moxley? Or do you think he's right back where he was? I mean, did losing to Moxley hurt him at all?
Actually, I think he gained.
Yeah.
I think he gained because he has an actual logical, worthwhile gripe, right? He should be the AEW champion by the contract that was signed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, by the rigid rules and ethics of the AEW Championship Commission, right? Like, when we were kids, that's what they would like. J.J. Dillon would be like, I've had a talk with the Championship Commission. That shit doesn't exist. But, like, it's really cool to think that there's, like, some dudes, like, some suits, like, sitting around, like, making rules and, like,
right.
you know, like, slipping like clauses into contracts and stuff. And I just really love that smoke and mirrors like type stuff. And I wish that like and maybe he will, I wish he would have come out like even harder with it. Like he's got that lawyer. It doesn't have to be the same one, right? He could have like a new lawyer, and he's got this team of lawyers, and they're suing Tony Khan.
Yeah.
And I got money to Tony Khan, and I want my belt. You know, like I think he gained more.
Jason, what do you think?
No, I agree. I get the undefeated thing, and you know, people are hung up about that, and AEW is all about the ratings, but the match itself I thought was better than I anticipated, and then the spin from the match is, like Two Beers said, it all makes logical sense, and this is a logical argument coming from the heel, which usually should never happen because they have their own disillusioned logic about how things are supposed to work. But in this case, I mean, you can't really give, you know, MJF too much of a beef or too much of a problem on this one. He's got a legitimate beef. Moxley cheated to win the match. So now what you going to do? So at that point, I don't think he lost anything. A loss here to the champion, like we said, coming into it, would be his first loss as a singles competitor in AEW. If that's my first loss, then you know what, so be it.
The only reason...
Look how well that they've treated their not just champions, but championship contenders even. Like, you don't get a shot at that belt unless it's obvious that you deserve one, right? It's not just like some beef or whatever, like a personal rivalry. Like, I feel like they really do a good job of, like, protecting their people based on these stats that we had no idea how it was going to work whenever it started.
I mean, I can't remember now. Why did Brody Lee get his shot? I just think the only reason that I ask that is because now they've had three guys with their first shot at the title in Brody Lee, Cage, and MJF, and all of them have fell short. MJF is such a great talker that he's probably lost the least, but it just really kind of...
If I may.
Go ahead, please.
Brody Lee, I think, was a kind of a stopgap. We weren't sure where we were going to go next, so they threw Brody Lee in. He just made his debut. So
yeah, it was not the plan.
Sense.
That was a COVID thing, right?
Yeah, it kind of made sense at the time. So I'm not necessarily going to really knock it for that. They definitely made up for it in the sense of having him come back and destroy Cody and setting up the feud with the Nightmare family. So I'll give him a pass on Brody Lee. Brian Cage obviously earned it. And then I can't remember who you said the third guy was. MJF. Okay, I mean, running undefeated for basically the length of time that Dynamite's been on. Makes sense. Lance Archer earned it. So, I mean, Brody Lee, I think, is the outlier to what you're trying to get at. And I see where you're going with it, but...
Is there any chance Archer takes it off him?
There's always a chance.
Okay.
I think there's a chance, but I think there's a bigger chance that, like, Orange Cassidy takes that belt off of Brody Lee, because I feel like they don't necessarily need to have, they are showing that they're doing long title reigns, but I don't know that TNT championship requires long reigns after that initial Cody Rhodes long reign. I actually thought it would have been kind of cool if Dustin would have taken the belt from him last week.
I totally agree with that. I don't think that long title reigns are necessary in professional wrestling. But I do think on the flip side that it's better to have an anything can happen during a title fight type of feel, you know, just like it's MMA. Like a guy you can just get caught at one time. You can just get caught and just you can just fuck up and take a finishing move and then you're done. I like that idea.
That's one thing that we even though we praise New Japan, and rightfully so, that is one thing that is lacking in their main events, like especially like when Okada was champion. Like, you know that like that thing's going a half an hour and it's not ending until Okada gets that drop kick spot, right? Every time. And just once I want to see like Okada just come with the Rainmaker like 3 minutes in and pin him. You know what I mean? They just don't do that.
You know,
I like that spontaneity.
We give WWE a lot of shit, rightfully so. I mean, they deserve all the shit that they get. But, I mean, that time when Goldberg speared Lesnar and pinned him in 30 seconds or whatever, that was legit shocking. Because you're at least...
Mark out moment.
You're at least... Are you making fun?
No, not at all, man.
No.
Oh.
Yeah, if you didn't we say what the fuck or oh shit or some sort of expletive, then you ain't got a soul.
Yeah.
At that point.
I mean, it really was shocking, and I would love to see that happen more often in just title fights in general. Just somebody gets caught.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hang on.
Are you going to talk about Daniel Bryan versus Sheamus?
No.
Because Daniel Bryan versus Sheamus probably did more for Daniel Bryan than anything else that ever from that moment till when he had his WrestleMania moment at WrestleMania 30. Those were the two biggest moments of his career by far.
I'm not going to disagree with you on that, my brother. I was going to say Brock versus Kofi.
Well, that's a completely different situation.
How is it different?
It was a shocking in a negative way.
Yeah, because that's just
okay, but
because when Goldberg spears Lesnar's a known entity. He's made, right? Lesnar's already made, and Goldberg's a a legend, I guess, for lack of a better term, a legend that has less moves than Roman Reigns, but a legend nonetheless. And then when Kofi, I mean, you're talking about the veteran who was getting his run with it, and it doesn't do anything for Lesnar to squash him. It didn't do anything for a story going forward with Kofi. They didn't spin it forward at all. Both guys probably lost momentum on it because then Lesnar went and fought fucking what's-his-face, the dude that we've never seen from again. What's his name? Velasquez. So that was totally different. At least Goldberg versus Lesnar, then at least they spun it forward to the WrestleMania. They were trying to make the WrestleMania match a bigger deal.
Okay, I'll say this and we can move on.
Just say that I'm right.
No, I'm not. I'm going to say you act like Goldberg and Lesnar was going to be a knockdown 30-minute, Iron Man match. We knew that Joker was going to end fairly quickly, okay? The fact that Brock versus Kofi ended that quickly within seconds, okay, that to me is a much more of a bigger deal, and that's why I can't necessarily say I agree with you. I get your point. Every now and then it would be nice to see, like, oh shit, that just happened. Oh man, it's over. Damn, what the fuck? But in this case, it doesn't always work, and Brock and Kofi is a good example of that.
Lesnar got speared and got pinned, and that was it. And up until that point, he was portrayed as being unbeatable, unstoppable, blah blah blah. Now I hate that it was Goldberg, obviously, but it's a moment that we all still remember.
Were grown men crying at that point? I would venture to probably say no. When Kofi won the title, grown men wept, and that's how you end that story. Brock Lesnar destroys him within seconds.
Man, I want
tell
to
it how you want to tell it.
I'm just not going to say the joke that I want to make right now because it's in bad taste. But it has to do with developmental disabilities.
Okay,
so
don't do that.
Let's move it on to NXT Wednesday night NXT. Zach, why don't you take this one?
Yeah, so it starts off with Shotzi Blackheart challenging Io Shirai. That was non-title, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was non-title.
Yeah, non-title.
It was a cool match,
but still a huge match for Shotzi and a really good opening match. Like if you were to look at the opening matches of AEW and NXT, and like you were trying to decide, like, oh, do I watch FTR, Lucha Express, or Jurassic Express, or do I watch Shotzi Blackheart versus Io Shirai? You'd almost like kind of lean AEW, or at least for me, I would, because I feel like that'd be like a better match. But this match was awesome. Right, this was like one of the better NXT matches that we've had, like, on television, especially in the women's division. I think this thing ruled. Like, really, like, Shotzi got to showcase some stuff, showcase like how tough she was. She took some really nasty German suplexes, one like high angled right on the apron, and took a really nasty moonsault. Io, despite being as good as Io is, like, that moonsault was not good. It looked like it hurt. Basically just hit her right with her knees, right across the chest. Sorry, I blacked out thinking about Shotzi Blackheart's chest for a second. But other than that, there's pictures, guys. There's pictures. Just Google. But yeah, it was a really good opener, really good women's match. I thought they did all the right things. I don't know exactly what happened next, but like the handful of like highlights of this show was that the tag team title match between Breezango and Imperium. And as much as we've been down on the tag team scene of NXT, is that those belts don't necessarily feel important, and it's kind of like indicative of how WWE treats tag teams in general. It seems to be leaking onto NXT. These guys had a really killer match. Everybody's super talented. I think people kind of sleep on Imperium, probably because they haven't been on American television nearly as much, but they are super crisp, really talented dudes. Maybe lacking a little in the charisma department, or maybe that's just like their gimmick, but they've really got the wrestling chops to.
Well, they're German
to get shit done. Yeah, that cultural thing.
How dare you talk about you and me?
Bill, defend your people.
Zach's German too.
Oh, I didn't know that. What the fuck?
Yeah, my last name's pretty German. But
yeah, good boy.
But Breezango retains, and we'll see where they're going.
Be right back.
With the tag team division after this. But and then we had the main event, which was Damian Priest and Timothy Thatcher. And Timothy Thatcher continues to be one of my favorite professional wrestlers, not just NXT guys, but one of my favorite just wrestlers in general. This guy is he's just a mean guy, right? He's just like, he's not a bad dude. He's not a good dude. He's just a mean dude. And he's the kind of guy you want to have on your side in a fight, because he knows how to fight. And he shows you that he knows how to fight. And he doesn't necessarily force everyone to work his like specific style so much, like kind of like, Zack Sabre Jr. match is Zack Sabre Jr. match. He is a technical wrestler in that aspect, or kind of in that vein, but he does have a very Timothy Thatcher style match. But I mean, like, we still had like Damian Priest coming off the top rope with a spinning heel kick, which was crazy to me, because I mean, that guy's huge, and
yeah, no
my
shit.
God, that looks worse than Fandango's like flying leg drop, which has to suck to take anyway. Like, I don't know why someone who has like anything that they can do, like wrestling wise, and is like talented and athletic, that's the move that they pick, because it looks like it just sucks and it just hurts. But yeah, again, this was a very good NXT show. I think the only bummers are we have a takeover in like 2 weeks, right? And they're so busy doing TV stuff that they're not building to the pay-per-views, where in AEW, the TV show is the build to the pay-per-view. It's not always the build to next week's TV, even though there is that. There's people that are not going to be on the pay-per-view, and they have to like try to get you to watch next week. But I feel like NXT is always just trying to get you to watch next week. And the takeover bookings have suffered because of it over the past like couple takeovers, and I think we're continuing that trend, unfortunately.
Do you think that is a product of, now listen, you guys might have watched NXT every week before it was on television. I would stop in, for the podcast, but like really, it was really just like TV tapings, and kind of, they would have some storyline, but only for the matches that were going towards the takeovers. But it seems like, I don't know, I can't tell if the weekly NXT product is better or worse than it used to be when it was just on. I mean, I guess it's better, but I am just not as high on NXT as I thought I would be now. And that is not necessarily to say that NXT has dipped in the past year or so, but going back and watching these NXT takeovers of old, like we're going to do later, the one before WrestleMania in 2017, I just think NXT really hurts from not having an audience, and I think AEW really benefits from not being inside. What do you think about that, Jason?
Oof, that's a lot to unpack. I'll say this. I don't like the current NXT product because it takes things away from Raw and SmackDown. Things like the lack of tag teams, the distraction bookings, silly things like that. NXT to me was a different brand because they did things differently. You know, we got from point A to point B differently, but more importantly, it made sense. You know what I'm saying? So now at this point, once they went to Wednesdays, I agree with Zach. It feels like it's counter programming versus we're just doing our own thing. I didn't even realize a takeover was coming up until I think they said it this week, where the women's battle royal is going to be the number one contender to EO in the title. I mean, shit, if we were going to do that, now that I'm thinking about it, why not build the NXT championship into TakeOver? Have that as the main event, or like we said 2 weeks ago, have a tournament, the 4-man tournament, the Mount Rushmore of NXT. Do that as a part of TakeOver. Throw the women's championship match in. You want to throw the tag team titles in, and now you got a TakeOver. This just felt like it's been sprung upon us so quickly that now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, well, damn. We got a takeover coming up in a couple weeks. That doesn't even feel like right.
Yeah, it feels like a payback or something.
Right. Usually takeovers coincide with the Big Four. And this is obviously not coincide with the Big Four. It coincides with, in this case, Clash of Champions. And that doesn't feel right. It feels like all of a sudden we're rushing the takeover, and it kind of takes away from it. Plus the fact, like I said, you start booking it like you do Raw and SmackDown, it feels different. They need to just bite the bullet, move to Tuesdays, dominate Tuesdays, and be done with it.
Really? That's what you think should happen?
Just be done with it, dude. AEW.
Well, they're never going to do that because they're never going to do that because.
No, they're not going to do that.
That would be admitting defeat.
That would have been, and Vince won't do that. AEW is going to have their fan base regardless. So why try to take away from their fan base? Fuck it. Let them get theirs. We need to get ours too. Move to Tuesdays. I love Impact, but I would still watch both. If you move to Tuesdays, there's nothing on Tuesday, regular TV, that could really pull away from NXT if they decided they wanted to do it.
That's a real shocker. Jason would still watch both.
You're a nerd.
Fuck you.
Can you guess what drop I just played?
Yeah, I can imagine which one. Cold-blooded.
No, you're a nerd.
Guilty as charged.
If you think about like it being advantageous for WWE, though, it really is, not just because you're going to get more ratings, but say something did happen to like Vince McMahon tomorrow, like car accident, whatever, because he's probably going to outlive all of us, at this point, being a billionaire and all. I think his mom's still alive, if that tells you anything. But the crazy thing is, like, if something happened to him, like, then who would go in that place? You know, naturally, like Triple H. But like, what's Triple H's track record right now to like television executives? His track record is he loses in the ratings every single week to a guy who started booking professional wrestling a year ago, less than a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, how hands-on is Tony Khan in terms of the booking, though?
He is the booker. He's the booker. The buck stops at Tony Khan.
Is that true?
I would tend to believe so.
I'm asking Jason, Zach.
I would tend to believe so, just in the sense. Sorry, Zach. I would tend to believe so. It's just in the sense that if we did the hierarchy of AEW, who's higher up than Tony Khan? who was there at Gorilla. I'm sure in last night's episode it was there for effect, but I would assume under
No, he's in
normal
Gorilla every
circumstances.
episode.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I would assume under normal circumstances he would have been there regardless. They did that last night for effect, which it worked. Okay,
He times
but
the show. Like, he's the guy that actually times the show and like does like the breaks and everything. Like, he is Gorilla, like, which is crazy because like I said, he had never done it before.
That is.
And, yeah, they had some.
I didn't know
They had
that.
some
That
rocky stuff. Yeah, initially there was some rocky stuff, but like they were starting this huge like production thing. But I mean, like, there wasn't ever anything about commercial shit. WWE has worse commercial breaks than AEW, and they've been doing it for 30 goddamn years.
Yeah, I mean, of course. WWE is, I mean, you tweeted that thing about me dozing off during an MVP promo on Monday night. I'll be honest, I didn't even watch Monday night. There was other things going on in my life, but that's what I would have been doing had there not been other things going on in my life. And Raw and, I mean, SmackDown, it was okay this week again. Raw is about as brutal as it gets. But let's not get too far away from this pretty decent NXT because I think the talent kind of deserves us to at least go over this a little bit. Did you guys I took a piss upstairs. Did you guys talk about Kyle O'Reilly making the save on Jake Atlas?
no, I was going to get to that, and
Because it looks like Kyle O'Reilly's flipping face, and it looks like we're going to get a Kyle O'Reilly Tommaso Ciampa feud somewhere down the line because next week we have Ciampa versus Jake Atlas. I do like that they're keeping the story going after Ciampa squashed Atlas, whatever it was, weeks back or so. But Kyle O'Reilly got in Ciampa's face, and he didn't come out with Fish and Roddy earlier in the show. So what do you think about Kyle O'Reilly going face, Jason?
I'm such a UE mark. I'm torn, but
Come on.
no, because dude, hang on. Hear me out for a second.
All right.
It's not a knock against Kyle O'Reilly. Kyle O'Reilly is a good singles wrestler. He's great with Bobby Fish with Red Dragon. If this is the way they want to go, okay, so be it. I guess my disappointment is it's happening now versus being on a Raw or SmackDown. But I'm just saying that if it's happening now, which it looks like it's going to, I mean, hell, Adam Cole gave Finn Balor respect after their title match. When's the last time you've seen that?
I mean, it looks like Adam Cole and O'Reilly are turning face.
Are the baby faces where Fish and Roddy are going to be the heels. So that feels like
that's not really how I would have gone. I think
not the way I would have gone either. But I mean, like I said, if they're going to do this angle, I'd rather do it on NXT. Is I guess my point, because at least I know they'll tell this story in a smart, logical way.
Well, I'd rather
versus doing it on Raw.
In a perfect world, it would be in front of a live audience at Full Sail, and Kyle O'Reilly would do it in front of people. I mean, that would have been fucking great. What are your thoughts, Zach? Who would you have made if you're looking at Undisputed Era and you were going to keep two guys heel and make two guys face? Who would be the baby faces, do you think?
I think the baby faces would be Adam Cole and Roderick Strong, and then you keep Fish and O'Reilly together, partly because they're already like a unit. Like when you think of them, even though they're both awesome, right? Like neither one stands out on their own, even though like I'm a big Kyle O'Reilly fan. I think he could stand out on his own. But like right now, you think Fish and O'Reilly, right? And Roderick Strong, he was already a singles guy. He was already a babyface. Adam Cole can be anything because that guy is a superstar, right?
Yeah.
Like he's one of the best. So I go with those two.
He's a superstar like Mickey Rooney. I totally agree. I would have kept Bobby Fish and O'Reilly. I just think Roddy Strong, as evidenced by the NXT that we're going to talk about later, would be great. Last thing, Damian Priest versus Timothy Thatcher was really good. Timothy Thatcher, it's not as extreme as Zack Sabre Jr., but Timothy Thatcher does tend to get different types of matches out of guys that probably he brings people into his comfort zone rather than the other way. Does that make sense, Zach?
Yeah, it's almost like I said the same thing while you're taking a piss.
Oh, did you really?
It's really funny.
Cold blooded.
Bro, I didn't get a chance to speak on it. I'll speak on it. I like Timothy Thatcher. I was going to say.
Go ahead.
No, you're fine. I was going to say I like Timothy Thatcher. I think everything Zach said is right on the money.
Did you compare him to Zack Sabre Jr.?
I did, yeah. Although I did qualify it and say that Timothy Thatcher does, even though he kind of does pull people into that style of match, it's not so much that match only, because we did get that Damian Priest like spinning heel kick off the top rope, which was bonkers. But yeah, he definitely does. Like you see a Timothy Thatcher match, it's a Timothy Thatcher match, right?
Yeah, just like Sabre Jr. I just want to put this out there, and Jason, then I'll let you finish. But Zach and I have not talked about this, and I definitely did not hear Zach say that because I was upstairs taking a piss. So
I know.
That's I mean, I guess at this point that's a fact. I mean, if us two say it, it's not an opinion anymore. That's a fact. Go ahead, Jason.
Because you two guys say so.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. All right.
Bottom line.
Thank you for agreeing, Jason.
No. Fuck you. No, I'll say this. I guess my problem, if there is a problem with the match, it just, and that goes for EO and Shotzi Blackheart too. Both were good matches. I just felt like they came too early. I wish they had built up to these matches once again, kind of going back to the takeover argument or whatever. I guess it felt like they did it to have people to watch versus a story to tell. Both matches were good. They could have been both better, especially the last match, the main event. I mean, come on. I like Timothy Thatcher, but it ain't no way in hell you're going to have Damian Priest lose night one of defending the title. So for me, that's why I'm kind of like, okay, I can watch the match, but I know how this is going to end.
I'll be honest, though. I enjoyed Thatcher versus Damian Priest more than I enjoyed the street fight between Santana and Ortiz versus Best Friends.
Man, I thought that street fight was one of the better matches like that AEW has done. And I mean just matches, like not even like Dynamite. Just like, I mean, I liked it just as much. I actually probably liked it more than the Kenny Omega John Moxley hardcore match.
Yeah, that's fucking insane. But I mean, we're
I got you coming up with that, but yeah.
I mean, okay. we're all God's children. Let's get to that 2 count.
1, 2, 3.
2 beer. What's the 2 count?
Guess we know how to kill a conversation. 2 count is.
I'm in charge of the board, Zach. I'm in charge of the board.
It's a good thing.
No shit.
The ROH has come back, right? So Ring of Honor took a lengthy hiatus. It's not just because their booker is in sexual assault accusation purgatory, even though that is the case. Marty Scurll on ice right now. So this didn't have anything to do with him. But ROH is filming like on location, like a very isolated environment. Seems like a very responsible setup. Like they're very explicit and very open about like their practices, right? And they're coming out with a new weekly television show that is incredibly sports oriented. And it turns out, guys, I'm the least sports oriented of the 3 of us here, as in like I usually joke that I only like fake sports, but it turns out that I really like fake sports when they most closely resemble real sports, because I love this.
Oh
yes.
Shit.
Yep.
Great, here we go. All right, let's go. Wait, hang on 2 beer. Let's just get this out the way. Let's get it out the way right now. We gotta stroke the boss's ego. Hey Bill, you're right.
Thank you.
What's he right about?
He always says that wrestling is best portrayed when it's presented as a sport, as a quote unquote real sport.
Yeah, I've heard him say that.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that Zach's ever disagreed with that though. Like I mean,
no. Just shut up and take the goddamn compliment.
But
This is
the
really
coolest
nice.
thing was just how heavy-handed the sports broadcast was, right? So, for those of you guys who aren't familiar, the Pure Tournament, something that they're bringing back, it's very rules-oriented. Combatants, it's a single elimination tournament. They meet in the middle of the ring. They do the code of honor handshake, right? And there's no closed fist. For a closed fist, you get one warning, and then second time you're disqualified. There's only 3 rope breaks allowed, whether submission or pinfall. After 3 rope breaks, then your opponent can use ropes for submission or pinfall. You only get those 3. There's a 15-minute time limit for the first round. I think it goes to 20 for the second, 30 for the quarter for the semifinals, and then an hour for the final. And also, you're guaranteed no outside interference, because anybody who runs down to interfere, is fired from the company, which that's not going to happen. So you're basically just told that there's going to be no interference. And they presented this with initial character bios that were like damn near probably 5 minutes long. So the first match was Jay Lethal and Dalton Castle. And we watched like these 5-minute promos from each of these guys with clips throughout their career. And by the end of it, I'm rooting for both of these guys. I have no idea what's going to happen. Like, I know that they only got 15 minutes to figure it out. And if it goes to a draw, then there's a team of judges that are going to, like MMA style, that are going to say who won. And man, like, I won't spoil it for anybody as far as like results or anything, but like at the end of these character bios, I wanted both of them to win. And they did go to a commercial break during the match because of the nature of broadcasting. They did have to do that. They'd have a whole 15-minute time block, because this thing went like 13 and a half, 14 minutes, which because there's a goddamn timer the entire time on the screen, along with little dashes that tell you how many rope breaks the guys have left. So like they're like semiotically telling you, like, you can absorb that information without the announcers having to rehash or tell the story of the match. Like you visually understand the story of the match like immediately. But anyway, they went to a commercial, and then when they came back, they explained what happened during the commercial and showed you like a clip. And they're like, yeah, like Lethal's still working on Dalton's knee. And they showed what he was doing from like previously. It was fucking awesome. And there was 2 of these things.
So I haven't seen it, but I read about it, and I sent you guys this article that I read on Defector.com, which is, for those of you that don't know, Defector.com are the people that got fired from Deadspin. So everybody that's on Deadspin right now are scabs, and everybody that's on Defector.com right now, they're the old Deadspin guys. But I sent this.
Is it the guy that wrote that book, The Squared Circle?
It is not. He's with The Ringer now, David Shoemaker. He's a really smart guy. But I sent this. I was like, do you guys want to talk about this? And, of course, both of you guys had already heard of it. And you're like, oh, yeah, I mean, this looks pretty good. And I was like, of course, I'm the last one to fucking know. but this is what, like I said, I haven't seen it yet, but this is what Raw Underground should have been. If Raw Underground, if they had like an hour of the show that was guys fighting for something called the Pure Championship, or call it whatever the fuck you want, and it was very rules-based, and it was actual wrestling, actual professional wrestling, then I would have been in love with the Raw Underground. Instead, I mean, let's not even taint this conversation with talking about the Raw Underground. But, I mean, this is really exciting to me. Like I said, I haven't watched it yet, but this is actually what I've been calling for a long time, like Jason alluded to earlier. Jason, what did you think of it when you watched it?
I agree with Zach in the sense of the sports element to it. They did the bios or whatever. For me, knew Dalton Castle, knew Jay Lethal. So for me, it was a review. But if you were looking at this for the first time, and you didn't know who ROH was, didn't know who these guys were, this did a really good job of breaking down how we got from the start to modern times. Yeah, we met each other at this match. This person won this time. This person won the other time. And then the match started. So it's a 15-minute match. The commercial break was a lapse of maybe a minute in time. And in that minute, like TBZ said, they reviewed it and showed you the clip. So, I mean, that to me is always one of my biggest arguments against commercial breaks during the match. It feels like I missed something and it takes away from the entire match. Like I said, that match, both times when they did it, it was about a minute that we elapsed and they went back and showed you that. Outside of that, I think the biggest problem with this, and you brought up Raw Underground, and that's that. That's sports entertainment. This ain't that. This is, if you like technical Zack Sabre Jr. type shit, this is for you. If you like sports entertainment, don't even waste your time.
No.
You are going to be bored.
I'll say this. Raw Underground is not sports entertainment. It's like sports entertainment minus the sports and minus the entertainment. It's just kind of like I don't even know what it is. It's impossible to describe.
Have you tried to describe that to someone who like was unfamiliar with anything?
But it's not like Fight Club. It's like, are there rules? Is there anything? Is it just Shane just like, is anybody getting drunk? Is anybody enjoying themselves? Like, I can't tell.
It's packed every week. You got that big ass black guy that we still don't know his name. Oh, I'm sure they said his name, but I just don't pay attention anymore.
It's Keith
Lee.
Lee.
The big ass black guy being at security. I mean, come on.
I think it's Zeus.
I think you're right. I really think you're right. Which is
there are some people listening that might be too young to know who Zeus is. No, but like I said, I didn't have time to watch the ROH thing, but it's on television here in St. Louis. I can DVR it.
I did what Zach normally does, and I went to Daily Motion right around 3 before we did the pod. And I watched it there. It was about 45 minutes long, and it was 2 matches, both 15 minutes. Obviously, I won't give the spoilers away, but I agree with 2Beer on this one. I used to watch ROH, and then I stopped watching after a certain point, and then the pandemic hit, and so I stopped watching altogether. I'm going to have to watch the next week's episode because now – this is for me. I like Zack Sabre Jr. type shit. So if you're going to tell me I get this for the next, I don't know, 6 weeks, I guess, I'm all in for this. I mean, this is gonna be
you talk about, apparently the Pure Championship used to be a thing back in 2006. I don't remember this. I'm sure there's some of you nerds out there that marks out there that will reach out and say, how do you not remember this? How do you do a podcast that I listen to? My response to that would be, do your own fucking podcast. I'll do the podcast around here. But apparently Daniel Bryan had it, Samoa Joe,
AJ
Styles, Nigel McGuinness, guys like that. So I'm excited to watch it. That sounds pretty much right up my alley.
A very clean way to watch Ring of Honor. This is actually how I watch Ring of Honor. When I was watching it, I took a break even before their hiatus. But they throw them up on Fight TV. So if you have like a Chromecast or whatever, an Apple TV, or they probably have an app on Roku or whatever. But like they throw them up on Fight TV like a day after they air.
Story, I forgot about that too. Yeah, that was a really good way. I do have Fight TV, and I totally forgot about that. So yeah, if you want to do something legit, you can go that route too.
Well, I look forward to talking about this in the future, and apparently Impact rules, and I watched it this week, and it was good. So, yeah, so now I have to devote even more time to wrestling.
And the G1 starts Saturday. So.
Well, everything gets pushed to the side for the G1. You mean the actual WrestleMania? Everything gets pushed aside for the G1. What were you going to say, Jason?
I like how, well, 2 things. I like how ROH doesn't shy away from their past. They'll give, credit to Drew Gulak, AJ, Samoa Joe, so on and so forth. Second thing, I do remember Daniel O'Brien Danielson wrestling Nigel McGuinness for the title. A friend of mine showed me this. He showed me who Daniel Bryanson was before he was Daniel Bryan or whatever.
He was the American Dragon, right?
Dragon, came out to I can't think of the fucking song or whatever. Final Countdown or whatever. So I mean, I do remember those days, and I remember that match where they unified the titles, and that was a great ass match. So if you get a chance to watch that, that kind of will give you an idea of what this tournament could possibly look like and why I think this is going to be exciting. Because ROH is basically is like the baby redheaded stepchild of the professional wrestling world. This is a good chance to at least get some eyes on it because they're doing something that nobody else is really doing.
Is ROH the redhead stepchild? I think Impact is. I think ROH.
Shit, you are out your monkey mind. No way.
ROH used to be very well respected though. Like ROH was a
look how many channels Impact has been on, and it's still around. If anything, it's the cockroach of professional wrestling. You can't kill it.
Is that better? Is being the cockroach of professional wrestling better than being the redhead stepchild? That's going to do it for our 2 counts.
1, 2, 3.
I do want to say that I hope Jay Lethal wins because I met him at an ROH show one time and he gave me an N-word pass.
Jesus Christ.
That is not a true story.
Jason Bell used to give me the pass for the N-word, but I never used it because I'm a better person than you, Zach. So
I still have mine.
All right. The 3 count's going to be.
I got it. I still have it. It's valid.
The 3 count is going to be the NXT Takeover Do-Over, which we do from, most of the time around here, unless there's too much shit going on, where we go back in time. We started at the beginning of the pandemic. We go back in time and we watch one takeover per week, starting from the beginning. And we are getting into some really good ones. We have gotten to some good ones. I can't remember which one we've said is the best one, but we definitely, I think we had a consensus. But this week we have NXT TakeOver Orlando in April of 2017, the night before WrestleMania. Main event was a rematch between Bobby Roode and Shinsuke Nakamura. But you know what? Let's start with the beginning, and we give our star ratings. You guys can pause it right here if you haven't watched the NXT in a while. Go back and watch it, but we give our star ratings. The first match, the curtain jerker, was Sanity, Alexander Wolf, Killian Dane, Eric Young, and Nikki Cross versus the Babyfaces, who were at this time Ty Dillinger, Roddy Strong, Ruby Riott, and Cassius Ohno, a.k.a. Chris Hero. I'm interested to hear what you have to say about this, both of you, but let's start with Jason.
To answer the first question, I think we said, and somebody will correct me, I'm sure if I'm wrong, I think we said NXT Dallas was the top of the hill at this point, but I could easily go back and check, and I'm sure somebody will call us out on that. Now, for the match itself, I gave it 2.25 stars. I mean, it just felt like we threw this nonsense together. Cassius Ohno is a nice, surprise, but I mean, it didn't really add anything to the story. It was, a nice, smarky indie pick, which popped the crowd. But outside of that, this was basically Sanity just running amok, and which they should at this point. They are the legit stable, if you will. All the other people have, beefs against them, but not enough to where it should overtake Sandy. Plus, like I said, the match itself just really wasn't that good. It wasn't interesting, especially as a curtain jerker. Kind of a sad way to start 2.25.
Zach, what do you got?
Yeah, I gave it 2.5. It was like Nakamura in the main event, 8-man tag to open. Like, are we watching New Japan? Like, what's going on here? Definitely was not your typical, scenario for TakeOver.
Yeah, I gave it 2.25 also. I mean, everybody worked hard, which I appreciate, but it's not very TakeOver-like to have a thrown-together match like that. Like, usually at TakeOver, you'll have a team that's put together with another against another team, working a program with another team or something, which we'll get to later. But I gave it 2.25 also. Next up, we had Aleister Black's debut in NXT, I think is what they said. Maybe it was his NXT TakeOver debut, but certainly It was two guys that were inextricably linked, even to right now, due to Aleister Black being married to Zelina Vega. We had Aleister Black versus Andrade Cien Almas. I gave it 2.5 stars. What do you got, Zach?
I gave it 3 stars. Like, this was like totally fine. Obviously a showcase for Aleister Black, and he was a total like awesome dude in NXT, right? That entrance, the mystique, those tattoos, good looking dude, you know, like as far as like, you know, lady like appeal, like
Take it easy.
like, you know, same thing with I mean, you know,
look
I
at
say
those
it about the women.
those eyes you could swim in.
I gotta say it about the men the same way I say it about the women. Otherwise, I'm a sexist son of a bitch, right? Like,
no,
equal opportunity harasser over here, ladies and gentlemen.
Same guy that wants to say the N-word. Everybody.
I told you, I still got the man.
It's valid. Leave him alone.
It doesn't expire,
right?
But actually, I think it expired in like 1943. But
give or take.
The match itself like was totally fine, and it did kind of make me pine a little bit for like the glory days of like both of these guys, and I think they could have a lot ahead of them, but I don't see a lot going on with Paul Heyman not being on Raw for Aleister Black, and I think with Dominic Mysterio, I think Vince totally has like his new Mexican now. Like, he's done with Almas, right? Like, and Garza and all those guys. Like, I feel like he's just like all in on Dominic, which is like shitty to say, and it's not like a cool thing, but I just feel like that's accurate. We're a fine match.
We're going to talk about Dominic a little bit in the odds and ends. No, it's fine. It's fine. We're going to talk about a little bit in the odds and ends. Jason, what you got for it?
I agree with Two Beer on this one. I gave it 3 stars. Obviously,
Marks.
like you said, it was a performance for Aleister Black to shine, but I think you got to have a good dance partner to do it. And I think this is one of the first times Roddy Strong on NXT TakeOver San Antonio. That was a good match. So now we've got back-to-back really good matches for Andrade. So I think this is kind of more, I guess, the start of consistency with Andrade, where I think he's starting at least, you know, feeling more comfortable. And I guess behind the scenes, Triple H might be giving him more to work with, but slowly but surely he's starting to kind of move up the card a little bit. Still early, but you can see signs of what is going to be down the line versus a Johnny Gargano, if that makes sense. So, like I said, this case, I give it 3 stars.
Sure. Next up, now we're getting into it, boys. We're getting into stuff that is right in my wheelhouse, so to speak. Not saying it's not in your guys' wheelhouse.
No,
this match happens to be on the TV right now. I started NXT TakeOver again when the podcast started, just to have it on the background. Right now, I'm watching DIY versus the Revival versus the Authors of Pain. The crowd is going nuts. They just put Occam through a table. The Revival and DIY are getting ready to kind of trade off finishing moves with the other guys. So Ciampa and Dash do the shatter. What's it called? Shatter Magic?
Shatter Machine.
Shatter Machine. There's a magic killer, Shatter Machine. Yes. Okay. I gave this 4.75 stars, guys. I loved this match. You guys know how I feel about triple threat matches. Because it adds a little bit more drama, adds a little bit more storytelling. You guys know how I feel. I gave it 4.75 stars. Jason, I'm curious to hear what you gave it.
If I'm not mistaken, there was another wrinkle in this match. It was an elimination match as well.
It was.
On top of it.
Mm-hmm.
I gave it 3 3/4 stars. Don't get me wrong.
Holy shit.
This was a good ass match. I did not think it was that over the top. I liked the match, but I mean, let's just be real for 30 seconds. Who was getting ready to win this match? Okay, even upon retrospect, if I watched it the first time, you kind of knew how this Joker was going to end. You just couldn't, if you didn't have the two teams deciding, hey, we got to take this team out first, it wasn't going to work. Great spots, great storytelling, but I think you guys are kind of taking this one step too far. 3 3/4 stars.
That's amazing to me. Zach, I know we're both hurt right now. And
no,
I know,
you two are both marks, man. Stop being marks. So what, Zach? What'd you give this? Like 17 stars? Because I know.
oh,
Gargano did it.
hey! Zach, what'd you give?
Actually, I subtracted 17 stars because he was eliminated by his partner being pinned. Johnny wasn't even eliminated. Johnny didn't do anything.
Yeah, I was going to say, fucking Ciampa. See, this is how it starts. He gets eliminated in the triple threat.
2 beers, Zach Pullman. What'd you give it?
I actually gave it 4 3/4 also.
Fuck really yes.
It was purely a spot fest, right? And it there's not a ton of psychology, like Jason said. I liked the main event of this because there was a lot of psychology. I like this because I could just put on my cardboard framed sunglasses with one lens blue and one lens red and my big tub of popcorn and just throw it at my mouth and just watch it. And it's 25 minutes of spots, just wearing my t-shirt that says We Heart Spot Monkeys.
I just watched, I'm watching Dash and Gargano. They just gave a double super kick, and here comes the Shatter Machine with Ciampa and the other one. I can't remember his name. Thank you, Zach. You know what? It always feels like you guys are teaming up on me a little bit. I like it when me and you can team up on Jason a little bit.
I'm sorry, I'm right a lot. I mean, goddamn.
No, hey, Jason, I'm going to say this. Jason. I don't say this a lot to you. That's a shit take. That's a shit. to give this match. Oh, and when Revival tries to go after them when they turn their backs and then they all start fighting. Come on, you're going to give this 3.75 stars? That's a shit take, Jason. You should be ashamed of yourselves.
Whatever. Just because somebody agreed with you, you gave yourself a self high five, and then all of a sudden you run down the street because somebody agreed with you. Get the fuck out of here.
I will run down the street because somebody agreed with me. So coming up next, we have Asuka versus Ember Moon for the title. I'll let Zach go first this time. What you got, Zach?
Man, I miss Ember Moon. Big bummer about her injury, and hopefully, she can come back and
she's a talent.
Maybe a surprise entrant in the Royal Rumble or something. That would be cool. I don't know what the timeline is, but it was a shoulder injury. But it's been a while, right? And I know everything seems like a long time because of this pandemic and stuff, but it has been a while for her. But yeah,
she's missed.
I miss Ember Moon.
Yeah,
she's missed, and this was a really good women's match. A really good professional wrestling match. I say women's match because
you're a sexist.
We had, that's why. But we had the Asuka Bayley matches, which were really good, and then we had a couple that were just kind of so-so. Right, there was a 4-way thrown in there, and I know this is Asuka's reign of terror, and she's looking real strong and stuff, but she has a couple really good matches with Ember Moon, and this match is really good. I gave it 4 stars.
Jason, what do you got?
I gave it 3.5 stars. I like Ember Moon. I think we all can agree that she's been missed, and I'm not sure if she's coming back. I thought I read somewhere that she doesn't feel too confident about ever coming back because it's one surgery after another, but
that's a bummer.
Another story for another time. The Asuka Reign of Terror, I had no problem with it as long as you kept putting up credible opponents in front of her. If you book her to beat set of credible opponents, so be it. Ember was one of those credible opponents. It felt like this match was missing something. I couldn't really put my finger on it, but all in all, I still enjoyed the match. 3.5 stars.
I wish Asuka was still undefeated.
Yeah, I know. Seriously.
Once she goes up to the main roster, that's just
but
not going to happen.
Losing to Charlotte is a waste. I went right in between you guys. I had 3.75. They're both great workers. Obviously, Asuka is out of this world. I had 3.75. I'll go first for this one. We had the Bobby Roode versus Shinsuke Nakamura rematch for the belt. Bobby Roode came in holding it. This was still when everybody was in their honeymoon period with Nakamura. Not that Nakamura has dropped off at all, but I gave it 4 stars. I'll let Zach go next.
I actually gave it 4.5 stars. I mean, you got these two guys who have these awesome entrances, which does add to the match a little bit. I won't say it really affected my rating or anything, but whenever I'm kind of flying through these do-overs, I'm not watching everything start to finish, partly because I don't have the network, so a lot of it's stopgap stuff here and there. But this was a main event, and these guys both absolutely worked it like a main event. It felt like a main event. Nakamura was in big match mode, right? Nakamura is one of the best big match wrestlers in the world. Still is, even though he's tag teaming with another really good wrestler that Vince doesn't care about right now.
Two most underused guys in the company.
For sure. I mean, Nakamura is he's up there with Kenny Omega. He's up there with AJ Styles. He's up there with Kazuchika Okada, Tetsuya Naito, big match superstars, right? This is the guy that when he's on your roster, he could main event every WrestleMania that you have, right? I know he's not there to do that. He's there to kind of collect a check, and he likes living in America with his family, and he likes to go surfing every day.
Namaste.
And that's, live and let live, brother. But
sure.
I really love this match because it just shows how good both these guys were. And maybe I'm being nostalgic about these guys, but I didn't watch Roode and TNA. I watched him in NXT, and that's where I was introduced to him. And he is great, and he's great in a certain way. It's an old school psychology, and this is just old school professional wrestling. Man, they worked Nakamura's knee, and it was just wrestled like a main event for a major championship. And Nakamura got it was his NXT swan song, right? He was onto the main roster to do awesome things and wrestle AJ Styles at WrestleMania, and all these things before we knew that that wasn't going to be the case,
right?
So it was good. 4.5.
I did used to watch TNA Impact when Beer Money was together with Bobby Roode and James Storm. I liked Bobby Roode and James Storm a lot. This is about where TakeOver became must-see television for yours truly. I got the network. I watched it. Every time there was a TakeOver, I either watched it while it was happening, or I watched it later on when I got home, or I watched it the next day as I got high before WrestleMania or whatever. This is when I watched it, and when I watched TNA Impact and Bobby Roode and James Storm together, I did not know that Bobby Roode had this type of main event stuff in him. They were definitely the cream of the crop when it came to tag teams in TNA, them and Motor City Machine Guns, but Bobby Roode was a revelation. I gave it 4 stars. Jason.
I'm giving it 4 stars as well. This Bobby Roode being a main event star to me wasn't a surprise. I remember the It Factor run in TNA, and I thought he was a really good heel there. So for me, when I found out he was coming to NXT, that was an instant excitement for me. Now, the fact that he had this nice run in NXT just reconfirmed what I always thought, that he has that, for lack of a better term, it factor. He could be at the top of the food chain, and if you present him correctly, he can have good matches. This was just another good match. The psychology of the match, 2 beers in, I think is the most important thing, because it wasn't a spot fest. You already knew what was kind of happening coming into it. This was just about this particular match in itself and how he worked limbs and finally broke Nakamura down to get a clean win, which you don't necessarily see from heels, and I think that's always a big deal. Heels could cheat, and they're supposed to cheat, but every now and then you gotta throw them a bone and give them a credible win, a clean win, more so than credible, clean win against a credible opponent. In this case, that's what happened, but we all kind of knew that Nakamura was going off to bigger pastures anyway, so be it. Anyway, 4 stars for the main event.
Okay, so we just went through Orlando NXT, and Jason, I think, correctly said that NXT Dallas had been our favorite. This is number 14. Dallas was number 9. Just to remind you, Dallas was American Alpha beating the Revival. It was Aries beating Corbin. It was Shinsuke Nakamura beating Sami Zayn. It was Asuka beating Bayley, and it was Finn Balor defeating Samoa Joe in the main event. I think that's where we're at as the best one is Dallas.
That feels right.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, Dallas still, that was better.
I mean, we could. I write down all the star ratings. I could go back and look, but that feels like that was the best one.
Because to me, the Nakamura
Zayn match was
in the middle of the card was so freaking good, and that you just didn't expect it because there was really nothing involved. There wasn't a title.
And Revival versus American Alpha as the curtain
was really
jerker.
good too as a curtain jerker. So I mean, to me, from top to bottom, Dallas still feels like it's the creme de la creme at the moment.
and this is what we set out to do when we started doing the takeover do-overs, is that we were trying to crown what the best takeover was. So the one that we just did was 14. Dallas was number 9. So we're still trying to find one to beat Dallas. I don't think that we're going to have a problem finding one to beat Dallas, but right now, Dallas is the one on top. Agreed?
Agreed.
Yep.
All right, cool.
Yep.
Let's get to those odds and ends.
This is banned from ringside.
Okay, the thing that I want to talk about is that every time I think I'm sick of this Seth Rollins versus Dominic Mysterio feud, and I don't know if it's a soft bigotry of low expectations, but Dominic Mysterio can work, man. Did you watch this, Jason?
I did watch it. I'm surprised. I can't say that I'm not. I mean, I expected Seth to win, so they got that part right.
Right.
But leading up to this, there was a moment where I'm like, damn, Dominic might actually win this match. And he looked good doing it. I keep waiting for him to, miss this moment or miss this spot because he's just so young and he's not supposed to be here.
He hasn't done it yet.
And he's not. And that, to me, is the credit that I have to give where it's due. I'm not necessarily a fan of how fast he got there because I think there's other guys that could be doing the same thing, but that's neither here nor there. But I got to give the man the credit I got to give that the little man this credit because, I mean, he's doing shit he ain't got no business doing right now.
Of course, there's guys that have paid their dues more than Dominic Mysterio, but at least he's not just coasting his way through it. Like, he's taking bumps.
Seth Rollins are
he's
having
working
good matches.
He's working matches. I would love to hear Seth Rollins do a shoot interview about Dominic Mysterio on Truth Serum, like not with the WWE. He's just you know what I mean. They put Street Profits over clean against Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura. Street Profits they're getting protected. What do you think about that, Zach? I haven't watched Raw in 3 months. That's my Zach impression.
It's actually not true because I did have some time. Not this week. It was not in my face this week. But last week I watched Raw, like the Hulu version at least. And but yeah, like it does surprise me because so many acts, come up from NXT and they don't really do anything with them. And I mean, they seem to be treating the Street Profits about as good as they treat any tag team,
seriously,
a lot better than some,
especially as champs, because usually when there's a non-title match, the champions lose on Raw and SmackDown. Like, that's just a thing
Yeah.
that must be like a Michael P.S. Hayes thing or a Vince thing or something. Like, if they have the belts, make them lose in an title match, which doesn't make any sense. But Street Profits went over clean over Cesaro and Nakamura. I can only imagine they're going to have a rematch at Clash of Champions, a pay-per-view that if it never existed, I would probably never even think about it again. Let me ask you guys this. We've been doing this podcast for, what, 3 years?
173 episodes.
Plus 3 years? So plus 3 years. Have we said the word retribution on this show yet?
We said it last week.
Okay. Who do you guys think retribution is, or do you care? Because I don't care.
I'll go first. I'm not. I don't want to say I don't care just because you said it, but I'll go this far. They've given me no reason to care. The promos mean the promos are like Bray Wyatt before or after winning the title, before he became the Fiend. They sound real good, but they don't really mean anything. The guys that they're attacking up to this week, when they jumped Keith Lee and Drew McIntyre, I mean, that wasn't really impressing me per se. I mean, it'd be different if it was like 6 or 7 of the same people, but now it's like this week it was like 12 of them, or it's inconsistent, and you're not booking it to a point to where it's giving me a reason to care after 3 hours of watching Raw.
Zach, do you even know what retribution is?
I do, because they were kind enough to let us know, as such anarchists they are, that on social media, that they were gonna invade before they even came. So like, I knew what they were before they even showed up. But very obviously, what we haven't talked about is what they are, which is Vince McMahon's warped view of what like Antifa is. Like,
I mean, you're probably right, but I mean,
yeah,
he's 78 years old.
Only instead of like anti-fascism, they're anti-ratings, because nobody gives a shit.
Ooh! Cold-blooded.
We get on BFR, ladies and gentlemen.
I love that shit. Let me ask you something in kayfabe style. Well, why isn't he upset about Cesaro hanging out with Nakamura and having the tag team titles? I mean, because they were the Bar. You know what I mean? You know what?
They were a really good tag team. Very successful
They
tag
were a
team.
great tag team. They were great together. The Bar was great. I'll say it.
Okay, all right, but I mean, if we kick it to kayfabe style, let's be real for 30 seconds. Do you want to continue this great partnership you had with Cesaro, or chase after the title?
Or do you want to be in a team where like tag teams obviously don't mean anything, kayfabe style and real style?
Okay.
Okay, so on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you guys for having 2 triple threat matches on Clash of Champions? It looks like we're going to get Jeff Hardy versus AJ versus Sami Zayn, who's back and who's doing better than ever. And it also looks like we might get Drew McIntyre versus Randy Orton versus Keith Lee. What do you think about that, Jason?
Yeah, you had me on the first one. The first one makes sense. It's UFC.
But is there too much drama that can happen in a triple threat match? Is that too much for you?
No. Fuck you.
Can't handle it?
Yeah,
Can't handle all the drama?
Yeah, I was gonna say, trust me, my whole last month has been nothing but drama.
I heard.
I'll say this. Keith Lee doesn't need to be in the second match. Keep him out of it. I just don't think they have a plan for him yet, so they keep putting him in spots where it keeps him on the radar. But just let Drew and Randy, fight their health, quote unquote, to have their match and be done with it. The Intercontinental Triple Threat actually makes sense. And Sammy said it, but spelled it out on SmackDown on Friday night perfectly. I was the champ. In March, I defended it in April at WrestleMania against Daniel Bryan, and I took personal time off. That's legit. That's all I ever asked from these jokers. Just make it make sense. Not only did it make sense, it was real. That was a straight up shoot. I came back and you anointed this joker as the champion. Now, if you want to be Raw Underground and all this other bullshit, apply that same logic here.
He's
you
heating
have
up.
The former champion, the uncrowned champion, or I'm sorry, the undefeated champion at this point, versus the interim champion. UFC will have these two guys wrestle and be done with it. AJ doesn't even necessarily have really a point in this. The last time, well, I take that back. Jeff cheated, so that's why he has a beef. But that's what I said earlier, back to, disillusioned heel logic. So he thinks he's in it. So overall, it makes sense. Keith Lee has nothing to do with this because they don't have a plan for Keith Lee. Shocker, I know. That's why he's seemingly hanging around. Yeah, I know.
What?
Come on, what's the plan for Keith Lee?
I don't know. He'll probably
they ain't got no plan for Keith Lee.
Join the Hurt Business.
As I say, we get to a point where that might be one too many. They ain't a business anymore. That'd be a corporation. Shit.
You just present him as generically as possible for 3 weeks, and when he doesn't get over, you send him to main event.
That's gonna do it for our odds and ends.
God damn, dude! Don't say that.
No, I love making Zach the last word because he's always just got these one-liners, these snappy one-liners. Hey, everybody, we don't have a whole lot of birthdays this week. Greg the Hammer Valentine. R.I.P.
Call me.
I think he's still alive.
All right, he's 70. Arn Anderson. This is the old man edition. Greg the Hammer. Wait, let's start with the young gal. Renee Young is 35. Greg the Hammer Valentine is 70. Arn Anderson is 62. Gerald Briscoe is 74. And Jim Cornette. Do you know how old Jim Cornette is?
My age plus 16, 63.
59.
What the fuck?
I know. Hey, everybody. We know there's tons of podcasts to listen to, so we appreciate you guys listening to our podcast. For F&B Eatery, for Vice, for Murray the Murray Man Murray, for Lucha Chris,
Check.
for Two Beer Zach Pullman, for Jason Cornelius Bell, I am Bill Vay. Everybody, go out and vote. Black Lives Matter.
Check.
Support your local weed dealer.
Double check.
And boo the heels.
Boo.